All right, Aiden Warner's in the game. That means it's time to do a podcast, Graham.
Once you
Florida's
see
up.
Aiden Warner, we can go ahead and go live. It's post game time.
Yeah, they're like, hey, hang on a second. Desmond wants to get in. Let's check this out real quick. All right, he got it right. Oh, he's getting really blocking. All right, now we can go. Now we can go. Graham, pretty lackluster. I don't know whatever adjective you want to use. Performance. I left my notepad over there. It wasn't the best performance. I mean, the special teams wasn't abysmal. The timeout usage was bad. Lagway looked good. I mean, it looked like obviously Tulane wanted to take away the deep ball, and they did for most of the game. Lagway did good except for the 2 interceptions, so his performance was okay. It just felt like the energy just wasn't there overall for the team. The defense played well, but Tulane was rolling with, I think, their third string quarterback. And you can tell they held them to less than, I think, 50 yards at the half. Florida dominated the box score, but just really wasn't good in the red zone, really, was how the game went.
Yeah, man, this game, listen, it's the Gasparilla Bowl versus Tulane on a Friday, December, what's it, 20th?
Yes.
At 3:30 on a Friday. Like, look, were we all excited to watch this team that finished really strong and for one last ride and hope Lagway would light it up and have a great game, of course, and want to, get one last time to stamp some positive momentum on the field for next year, obviously. But, I mean, this wasn't exactly, versus, Georgia at 3:30, right? This was a lackluster performance for what was kind of a lackluster stage to play on, which is, I don't even know if lackluster is fair. Like, offensively, definitely lackluster. But, I mean, defense was lights out, man. Listen, Tulane didn't have a quarterback. I mean, literally the dude playing for them, Ty Thompson, is literally in the transfer portal right now. So I think it's just, when you're watching the game and you're like, man, like this is kind of a gross game to watch, you got to take a step back and realize what you're looking at, right? You're looking at a Tulane team that, again, the quarterback that's playing for them is literally leaving after this game to go elsewhere. And for Florida, like DJ Lagway, look, we've gotten so used to him make these spectacular plays and look incredible, which is awesome. And I think there's a lot more of that to be had in his career here at Florida. I think so highly of DJ Lagway that I think when things are all said and done with him in Gainesville, it's not crazy at all to think there might be a statue of him outside the stadium at some point. But for the here and now, man, look, we got to remember sometimes when he throws some of these interceptions and doesn't quite do the performance that I think we're kind of all picturing in our head against Tulane in a bowl game like this. You got to sit back and remember for a minute, like, look, man, this guy's a true freshman with one leg right now. Right? And look, Tulane, you kind of alluded to it, and we can get into it here. Dylan, how often do you see young quarterbacks struggle against soft zone?
A lot.
Literally all the time, right? Most young quarterbacks, when they're early in high school, early in college, early in the NFL, at any level that they're new to, they are used to simply just beating man coverage at the level they were playing at before and being so athletic and having such a good arm and being so accurate down the field like Lagway is, that's kind of been his game. And what was hurting him today with those picks was Tulane just sending extra guys in coverage. Tulane said, we're not going to let Lagway beat us. Lagway and Elijah Badger. I mean, Badger, I don't even think had a catch. We're not going to let those guys beat us over our heads. You're going to have to methodically move the ball down the field to be able to score touchdowns. And because of that, Lagway forced some throws that he shouldn't have. And look, I tweeted this during the game because people were starting to get frustrated with how the offense was looking as a whole and Lagway. Better for him to throw 2 bad picks against Tulane than Tennessee next year or LSU next year, Miami next year. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to remember, I mean, think back, Dylan, to that LSU game. DJ Lagway got, as well as he played, he did get bailed out twice by 2 dropped interceptions. Correct?
100%.
So, would you rather Tulane catch those and Florida's still going to win the game? It's 26-0 right now. Might be more by the time the game is officially over. Or would you rather LSU catch him and LSU ends up winning that football game? Like, I'll take this. It's not the best. I would have loved for him to have a 4 or 5 touchdown performance, and we're just talking about how incredible he is, and we still are. But Not the worst thing for him to kind of learn that the hard way a little bit.
Yeah, I felt like the first play of the game for both teams kind of like set the tone of what they thought their opponent was. First play of the game was a jet sweep to Marcus Burke. Like, this is like, dude, okay, like this is the respect that we had for Tulane. And then Tulane's first play of the game was a flea flicker. They try to get one and it didn't work. It was like, okay, so one team doesn't respect the other one, and then the other team is saying we're way behind. Let's see if we can get one early.
Yeah.
That set the tone for me. And then like when I saw that, I was just like this is gonna be a snooze fest unless Florida can punch it in. I mean, Florida midway through the third quarter, their first 9 drives, 6 of them went into Tulane territory, but time and time again, there was a touchdown that got called back for a holding. There was the 2 interceptions that we've already mentioned. You look at the box score, and it showed they ran the ball well, like in the first half, and then like in the third quarter, like 4 yards of play. But it didn't really feel like that. It didn't really feel like Florida was imposing their will against them.
No, it wasn't. Jaden Ball, I think, busted off a big run. Jacoby Jackson busted off a couple of good runs. Katie Daniels had that kind of fluky fumble. Oh, touchdown. Gators in the end zone once again. Our man Rubio, who, full transparency, I've never heard of in my whole life. So that was interesting. But anyways, yeah, they ripped off a couple big ones, and like I said, Katie Daniels had that kind of fluky one with the fumble on 4th and 1 that he picked up and ran with and ended up scoring. But yeah, to your point, Dylan, like down in, down out running the ball, it was never super consistent all game. It wasn't like they were really getting a ton of push up front and getting, consistent 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards on plays. It really was they'd get stuff for -2 or not -2. They get stuff for just 2 or get maybe 3 at times, and then second and third down they'd have to throw the ball and see what happens. And that's how one of those picks ended up. It was on a third down, Lagway trying to force it. So yeah, it was clunky. It wasn't great. It wasn't, I don't think this is a performance I'm going to remember in 2 years. But
I ain't gonna remember this tomorrow. What are you talking
about? But it's in some ways it's something to build on for next year, and I think that honestly, I think next year we could maybe look back at this and say that Lagway throwing those interceptions and learning the hard way that he can't force those balls in there could be a positive thing moving forward for him in some bigger games where you might be in some situations like that where you got to practice patience and just throw the ball away or scramble, and even if you're going to be short of the sticks or short of a touchdown, still just scramble, get what you can and go down or what have you. This will probably, if I had to guess, make him a little bit more willing to do the smart play and the non-sexy play when it's just not there to be had.
All right, Anthony Rubio. He's a redshirt freshman. He did not see the field last year or this year. And he's from the city of Miami. He had 1,400 yards in high school and 14 touchdowns in 3 seasons. He was the 3rd team all-day selection his senior year. And he ran track. He ran 11.18 in the 100. That's all right. That's pretty good for a honky. I'll give him that. I will say that. I mean, I was doing this research because this might be Antonio Brown's honky of the day tomorrow when we wake up. So people can have some research. If you know, you know. Yeah. I mean, I really didn't know what to expect for this kind of game. I kind of thought there was going to be, if Florida showed a little bit of energy, I thought they would play well. I guess I was expecting a little bit better in the red zone, but you could just tell, man. Like when you're playing a lesser opponent, I mean, Tulane, out of all the games that Florida's played this year, was probably the 8th biggest game of the year, the 9th biggest game of the year. I mean, like the A&M game, you're up for it. The Miami game, you're up for it. Tennessee, I would even say Kentucky.
Well, this is a bowl game too. This is It's not like this is week 5.
Yeah.
Where everybody who's healthy is playing and there's no opt-outs and there's nobody prepping for the draft or anything like that. Like this is a bowl. This is the Gasparilla Bowl, man. It kicked off at 3:30 on a Friday. Like look, it's great they made a bowl. It's great that they're going to win this game and probably win it in shutout fashion, and that's awesome. But I saw something like I tweeted earlier again about DJ Lagway and how him making these mistakes in the Gasparilla Bowl is honestly probably a good thing. Him just learning, kind of learning that he can't make those throws and learning and making these mistakes and learning the hard way, like I was saying. And I got a reply that was like, no, this is disappointing. We needed Lagway to light it up to help get more recruits.
No, nobody changed their mind.
I'm like, listen, man, if you think that a recruit is making their decision based on what happens in the Gasparilla Bowl, then I have oceanfront property in Gainesville to sell you. Because I mean, what are we talking about? Rhonda said Rubio just scored. What a joke! This podcast. I don't understand what the context is, but whatever. That's fine. We're not sitting here saying they look terrible. That's not what we're saying. Yeah, man, Dylan. That's kind of all I got for thoughts on the game. Actually, I got one more thought on the game. That defensively, like, they've obviously played well. It's going to most likely be a goose egg unless Tulane pulls a last-second score out of their butt at the end of this game. It's a bowl game, so I'm not going to put too much stock into it. But something I'm a little worried about is I was watching LJ McCray on a couple snaps. He played a lot today. He's number 17, and he wasn't doing a whole lot, man. He was getting blocked. He wasn't really.
No, he didn't stand out at all.
Pass interference in the Gators. I'm a little worried about that, man. You would think that in a moment like this, a 5-star that has had all year to develop and kind of get his pass rush sets down a little bit better, you would think that in an ideal world, this could be a game where he might get a sack or two or kind of blow up some plays in the backfield. And I didn't see a whole lot out of him. So he's got a whole other year to develop. It doesn't mean he's not going to be a good player, but I would have liked to see a little more from him.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. And also on the other side, you had Roderick Kearney step in at guard. I think he played mostly tackle in high school for Orange Park.
Yeah, he played. He was at right guard all day.
Yeah, and I thought he played decent a little bit. I paid attention to him. The biggest takeaway I had from this game, and I mean, I know people aren't going to care much about this. Dog, we got to get a new special teams coach. Got to. You have to. You have to.
It's a joke, man. It's a joke.
And not just today. You can go back to the Tennessee game where it was front and center. You're right before the half. You have 12 men on the field. It cost you 3 points. Who knows what that would have been like?
Probably the game against Tennessee. Probably
the
game.
Who knows what that game would have been like in the second half if you make that field goal. Then you go to the LSU game. Nobody remembers this. First drive, Florida. It's like fourth down. It's whatever they're at midfield. They had 12 men on the field. Back them up 5. Didn't mean nothing. And then today happened twice. Like, you have over almost 4 weeks to prepare for this game, and you still have the same issues, man. The same issues.
Look, man, they cannot have a situation next year where right before half or at the end of a game, they find themselves needing a timeout or two that they don't have because they had to burn it because they had 10 men on the field on a punt or some stupid stuff like that. That cannot happen. I don't understand how this still plagues them. It is so unbelievably frustrating. Like, man, how are you a special teams coach at an SEC school when you can't count? I just don't understand. Like, what's going on? Tulane just scored. That was a nasty move by Mario Williams against Florida's 700th stringers. But anyways, I totally agree with you, Dylan. In a game like today, it didn't matter. But in a game that's much tighter where you're needing those timeouts and you're needing points you might be leaving on the board, that's going to be a major problem next year if this continues.
Yeah, I mean, special teams was a key factor in how Florida was able to stay in that Tennessee game. Aside from the field goal at the end of the half. Remember the DK punt returns? I kept getting them to midfield or at the 40-yard line, opposing territory. Like, it's not something that's talked about, and I mean, we won't even talk about it at all in the offseason, but it's a huge factor when you get into big games. I mean, we all agree that you're playing the same schedule you're going to have next year, and for you to be in this playoff bubble that we're going to see today and tomorrow, you got to be 10-2. 9-3 is probably going to be at the border, and that can be a factor and you win these big games because we still don't know what a lot of these teams are going to be next year. And Florida's done a great job so far retaining everybody. It seems like, and you've gotten a couple of guys in the portal now finally, and then you flipped the 5-star Dallas Wilson from Oregon. So we'll see, man. I really didn't really take much from this game. I really wasn't going to. If you had lost, it was going to look bad, but I wasn't going to let that linger. And I didn't think this was going to. It wasn't going to promote your program into the spring one way, and it wasn't going to step your team back. I didn't think if you lost, it would have felt bad for the fans for a week, and then it would have been all right. Let's move on. And what's next?
Yeah. My last big takeaway from this game, Dylan, and then we can move on to kind of talking about next year and the portal cycle and all that, and kind of wrapping up this year's worth of post-game shows and turning the page into next season and turning the page to basketball, which I'm going to force you to do.
I've watched.
Last thing related to the Gasparilla Bowl, and I think even the people in the comments that disagree with each other, I think we can all agree on this. This broadcast is one of the worst broadcasts I've ever watched in my life. I mean, Andre Ware was all over the place today, man. I mean, he called Jaden Ball Jordan Ball.
He was close.
He
was close.
He got Aiden Mizell and Chim DK mixed up. He said early in the broadcast that Lagway was a guy coming out of high school that not a lot of colleges wanted.
He said that?
Yes. He was getting ripped for it at the beginning of the game. I mean, he was the number one quarterback recruit in the country, but
oh my gosh.
Go off, man. Like what is he talking about, dude? And man, he was just saying stuff like that constantly. And the broadcast, the two guys in the booth, Andre Ware and I forget the play-by-play guy's name, they got this right, but they did like the player package, like the player highlight thing coming back from a break. And I don't know if anybody else picked up on this, but their guy to watch was Jake Slaughter, okay? And on the graphic, they had that he's like one of the top projected linemen for the draft, even though he just announced he's coming back to school.
Yeah, I noticed
this week. I'm like, dude, what is going on with this broadcast? And they also could not shut up about Trace Mack's name.
Yeah, the All-American.
Oh my God, the all-name team. Like, dude, that's one of those things that's like, it's kind of funny to say once, but yes. Like, he kicked a lot of field goals. Say, like, by the 5th field goal, man, like, shut up, dude. Like, just move on, bro. This was a rough day for the broadcast crew, man. It was not a good listen at all.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, more than 75-80% of the time, I just tune those guys out. I watch the game one way. I usually don't check Twitter during the game. I did for a couple of times, but other than that, man, I'm watching the game myself. I did see a little bit of what you were saying. I saw about half of it, but I usually don't care. It's usually pretty comical. Because we know the team better than most of those national people do. I mean, they get this game, they get a couple of days prepared for the game.
It was really, really obvious that, like, all these Gator players, like, who they are, how they play, like, what kind of season they've been through. It was really obvious that all that was new, like, very new to the broadcast group.
Yeah.
It was not something they've been following for a long time.
All right, let's talk about the portal. I guess the portal, because signing day's over with recruiting and all that. Man, I don't know how much you paid attention to Diego, Vanderbilt's quarterback.
Diego Pavia?
Yeah. When he was able to be granted his extra year of eligibility because he won JUCO. Man, I don't know how many people are understanding how big of a ramification it is, if it's just meaningless for him or for everybody in college football. Because, man, if this is true, if anybody that's ever played JUCO playing a Division I program right now is granted that extra year of eligibility or 2 years, like, I don't know how you recruit now, man. Like, if you're a coach, because it's almost to the point where, I mean, you already spent little time coaching high school football because of what the portal is. You have 6,000 guys in the portal. That's not a made up number. That's real. 20% of those guys get out of the portal and they sign somewhere. And now in JUCO, if you're able to basically not have your eligibility used up when you go JUCO, like it has been in the past, like I don't know how these coaches recruit, like what your strategy is and all that. I mean, in August it was you went from 85 to 105. I was like, okay, so you can strategize that. It's short. Now if you can do whatever with JUCO, dude, you better load it with JUCO because you have grown men that are 20, 21 years old that have played 2 years. Dude, these dudes can get their bachelor's degree before they're a sophomore, and they can still have 3 years left of eligibility. And I would much rather go that route than go the high school route.
If you see Rob's comment, does that mean Jacoby Jackson can stay one more year? I believe it does. I know that's the topic of conversation right now. So that's definitely something that they're talking about, and I think is going to be something to watch. I can't speak on that like 100% for what that's actually going to mean with Jacoby Jackson, but I do believe Jacoby does have one more year. Like John saying, he has one more year. I believe that's accurate. So, yeah, it's interesting, Dylan, because like the scholarship number is increasing as well. Like what I think is happening is, and this is already kind of happening. Historically, especially at the big programs, you've always had kind of an exact blueprint that the best programs are following, and the way they're doing things, and they're going to recruit. For forever it was recruit through the high school, and then the last couple of years with the portal, it's been the best teams recruit still mostly through high school, and they kind of just patch certain positions of need with the portal, and that's kind of how that's kind of the top programs in the country operate, right? And whoever can do that best is going to have the best roster. Now with this JUCO thing happening, now with scholarship numbers increasing, now with the portal being even more wide open than it's ever been, and the traditional high school route, you kind of have multiple ways you can attack roster building now, and you kind of see what wins. Right? Like it's not necessarily one way to do it anymore, I don't think. And getting programs bringing in GMs, I think, is going to have a big impact on that and kind of how they decide to do things. I'm really interested, like with Bill Belichick, him taking over Carolina, like what's going to kind of be his game plan? Like how is he going to like to attack roster acquisition? And because he'll probably be looking at this through fresh eyes and someone that hasn't been in college football for forever and might want to do things a little different. So, just kind of interesting how that's going to look for the Gators specifically. Someone like Jacoby Jackson, like how good has he been for the Gators? Like really good, and you're going to get extra eligibility out of him now. Like I still think for the top programs, I like it best when you still start with high school first, because I still believe in. Obviously, some guys are going to transfer. That's going to happen. You're going to suffer collateral damage. We all know that. But for the most part, if you can, for the most part, have a roster that you've developed in your own program, instead of having to consistently bring in guys that are juniors and seniors and just taking a chance on them, and the portal is just so boom or bust. Like some guys really perform and some guys don't. The reason I'm not totally sold on going full portal, full JUCO route is I don't want to end up like Florida State. You know what I'm saying? Where they have one cycle where they have some misses, and now they got to start all over again. They don't have a lot of young talent that is going to step in and kind of be the next wave.
Well, here's my thing. Like coaches have just gotten over this whole COVID thing. Like we're coming up on the end where everybody had a free year of COVID.
You actually have dudes running out of eligibility after 4 years now.
Right. So you're about to have that end. So coaches are like, okay, get breath of fresh air. We're getting back to normal. Now you got with this JUCO thing, it's like what? And by the way, coaches don't even know. I watched, it's like when you go down a YouTube rabbit hole when it's like it could be anything. Like I'll search like BlackRock like owning up all these rental properties or apartments, how they own everything. So they're like, we can't buy houses, in 10 years. And you go down this rabbit hole, you're like, your head just explodes. I did this with Jason Brown, last chance you learning this whole JUCO stuff. It came out 2 days ago. Diego was going to be granted his extra year of eligibility. And he was talking about the entire trickle-down effect. And he got on a D2 coach that coached Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. And he's like, yeah, man. He goes, we don't have any idea. He goes, do you know something? He goes, no, I don't know nothing. So if that guy don't know nothing, and he's in the trenches working it every day, like nobody knows nothing. And the thing is, like, the NCAA does all these things. It's almost like it's just a bunch of old white men get around the table. They go, you want to do this? Yeah, let's do it. All right. Sign, check. They get out the door. And then they're like, we're like, whoa, like, you don't know what you just did, man. Like, I don't think they understood what they just did. And to piggyback off the whole Florida State thing, man, like, if this does get passed and then nothing changes with the portal and NIL and everything like that, like, dude, I don't know how you can build a program no more. I think you just build a team and it's just year to year, and which makes it very, I don't know what word you want to use. It's encouraging what Napier's done, because he's actually building a program and he's got all his guys come back for next year. Everybody's going to know their faces. Like, dude, Florida State was 13-0 last year, 2 wins this year. Miami got all their guys from the portal mostly. Next year, they're going to have completely different faces.
Well, look,
But
no,
anyway.
let's not kid ourselves, man. Like, the reason Billy Napier still has a job is because the young guys on the roster are the ones playing the best, and you can see the future of what this can turn out to be, right? If they were still only a 6 or 7 win team in the regular season, I know they're going to win 8 now with this bowl. They just won 8 with the bowl game, but during the regular season, they were a 7-win team. If they were a 7-win team and the key contributors this year were Graham Mertz and Montreal Johnson and Badger and DK and all the older guys that aren't going to be here, then I'm not sure Billy Napier would have survived this season, even with finishing with some momentum. The reason that kind of he got the whole program to buy back in on him is because the key contributors have been Lagway and Ball and Jackson, and Eugene Wilson will be coming back, and Aiden Mizell made some plays, and all your offensive linemen all announced they're coming back, and and obviously all the defensive guys as well. Like, the future is bright, and most of these guys were high school recruits still. So to your point about building a program, like, I don't 100% know either, but I think Billy Napier is doing a good job of it. That doesn't mean that that still doesn't necessarily guarantee he's going to be a good enough game day coach to eventually bring Florida to the championship standard we all expect to have. But I do 100% agree with the way he's building the roster and his philosophy on kind of how he does things, right? I think when the recruiting cycle was really down before the LSU game, right, and it was in the 50s, I think the narrative a lot of us had was, man, this recruiting class, there's not much salvaging it, so Florida's going to have to just hit the portal super hard this year to try to build a winner for next season, and hopefully Napier can save his job at that point. They really did the opposite, man, and I know the portal window's not closed. They're going to get some more guys, I'm sure, but they still went high school. That's really where they hit the majority of their priorities, and that's going to be who their best thing is. So,
yeah, and I wonder too. Also, like, we can talk about how great he did, retaining everybody. I want to know how much money was spent on this NIL, and bringing these guys back. I mean, Slaughter was, like we saw during the broadcast, he's a top 5 center. Now granted, centers don't go first round, but you want your NFL clock to start as soon as possible so you can get that second contract, because that's where you make your money. Because, I mean, it's like Nick Saban went on with McAfee yesterday, was talking about NIL, and he's like, first year it was, I think when he said he was at Alabama, I don't think he was speaking in general. He was like, it was $3 million. That was our budget to spend money on players. And then the following year was 7. Then it was 10. Now it's 20. So it's like, we all heard that these boosters, instead of, all the money that we were told that was going to go toward the buyout for Billy Napier, okay, we're going to spend this on these players. Like, dude, how much money are we going to spend? And like, there's no like plan. It's like, okay, we have a plan for right now, but what's it mean going into the next year and in years forward? And nobody knows that answer, by the way. I think that's more of it. As much as we want to say it, I mean, players obviously do have to buy into what you're doing and all that. But dude, a lot of this is money. A lot of this is, hey, we'll pay you, more money for you to stay here. I mean, I saw Greg McGarity with the Gator Bowl, and this is the last thing I say before I throw it back to you. Every SEC starting quarterback made more money than Brock Purdy this year. Like, think about that, man. Think about that. It's sad.
Brock Purdy played in a Super Bowl in this calendar year, bro.
Yeah, and you got dudes that aren't even, they're just okay.
Yeah.
But we're in this new era where you can just, what's my market? Well, this guy says I'm worth 5. All right, we'll give you 5. We'll give you 5.5.
I have to believe that when the players start getting paid via revenue sharing, that it's going to change a lot of this.
Yeah.
Because the problem and the reason that it's the Wild West right now is because dudes getting paid through NIL, like the people putting those contracts together, the people responsible for getting those guys paid, the people that are quote unquote connected to the university, even though they can't like be a part of the university officially, like all that stuff is still like, even though it's legal, it's still like under the table kind of stuff, and it's not really officially well done paperwork and contracts. So when revenue sharing comes into play, you're going to have the schools have a lot more power and a lot more of a stranglehold on how this is actually going to look, and that's going to be good because the players need to get paid. I think we all agree with that. But this is just crazy, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's to what extent, because there's no end game, and it's like saving. So you start with 3, then you go 7, then you go to 10. Now it's 20. Okay, what's it gonna look like in 3 years? We had a comment, Connor. The thoughts on NIL ordeal, promises of cash being spent. Look at LSU. Yeah, LSU spent a lot of money.
That's our boy Connor Hervey. Shout out.
Yeah, you think these kids are truly buying in, or is it, or the Kelly regime? I think it's just the boosters are saying. I mean, they're taking the Ohio State approach last year. Ohio State they were like, look, we're tired of losing to Michigan, and we want to go all in on this year. So we're going to go get Judkins from Ole Miss. We're going to get Caleb Downs, and that's what LSU's doing.
And look, man, like with due respect to LSU, like if your all-in approach is Jack Pyburn and Jakeem Jackson, then more power to you, man. Like,
by the way, I did listen. Jack Pyburn went on Matt Moscona show.
I saw your clip. I saw you tweeted. I watched.
Yeah.
It. I mean, that's what we talked about. He wants to be an edge rusher that gets sacks. That's what it is.
Yeah, and whenever I've learned this, when you listen to people, I mean, sports, but really in anything, when they bring up something why they left to go to a school, it's because they weren't getting that at their previous spot or a job or whatever. And he said that he didn't want coach speak. He wanted to be coached hard from somebody that would, get the most out of him. I'm paraphrasing here. And I guess he wasn't feeling like he was getting out of Florida, and then he wanted to play all 3 downs, and he wants to be, he feels like he's a good edge guy, good outside linebacker, but he wants to be elite. And, he said that he wasn't getting out of Florida. Whatever. I mean, I made the joke, like, Justin Tratto hit the portal. Justin Tratto, everybody was clamoring a month ago. I mean, like, if I told you Jack Pyburn was the biggest loss to this team in the portal, you'd be like, okay. And then you'd move on. Which, by the way, Sapp hasn't announced anything yet. He's coming back. I would assume. I mean, if you can you put the context and put 1 and 1 together, Sapp's coming back next year. Caleb Banks already announced he's coming back. So if Sapp wasn't coming back, I think that Pyburn probably would have stayed. But that's just how the game goes.
And look, like more power to Pyburn. I don't blame him for wanting to go somewhere that he can test his skill set more on 3rd downs and rushing the passer. I get that. He specifically said in that clip that we were talking about with Moscona, wanting to put his best foot forward for the NFL. He talked, and that's what did we talk about in our podcast last week? We talked about how do you get the NFL on the defensive line? You get sacks. That's how you get drafted and drafted high. And look, he's a good player. He's not as good rushing the passer as Tyreek Sapp or George Gums. In another season, with both of them back, isn't going to change that. Look, assuming those guys are healthy, I don't want Jack Clyburn playing on third downs for the Gators. He's not a pass rusher. And if he wants to go prove me wrong somewhere else, by all means, go do it. But I'd rather have Tyreek Sapp and George Gums getting after the quarterback.
Yep.
Speaking of defense, speaking of young guys real quick, and then we can wrap up here in a minute. That pick by Myles Graham, what an athletic play, man. That dude climbed the damn ladder, man. Myles Graham, that's the one I don't know if we've talked about enough. When we talk about guys to be excited about next year. A couple of guys that I think we kind of understand are dudes to be excited about, but we may not talk about enough are Myles Graham and Aaron Childs, and I'm missing one, Dijon Johnson. I mean, all Dijon Johnson did when they suffered injuries to the room was step in and basically shut down every team's number one receiver. I mean, how many times did we – I mean, you and I watch every snap of this team. How often did we see Dijon Johnson, a second-year player, having to be thrust in and play every down and play outside corner? How often did we ever be like, man, Dijon's getting cooked? It never happened.
No.
And he caused the interception today that Alfonso ended up capitalizing on. He's the one that made the play. It was beautiful coverage. I mean, that guy's really, really good. Myles Graham's really, really good. And then the other guys that we talk about as well. The defense, man, the defensive young guys are really, really good.
One thing, I don't know if you saw, Napier went on Tom McShay's podcast yesterday. I don't know if it was taped 2 days ago, but it was posted yesterday. He said one of the things that changed this team's mindset was once they played Kentucky in late October, it was, okay, we just took Tennessee to the ropes all the way down to the end to overtime, and you had seen Tennessee beat Alabama. Florida beats Kentucky the way they did, and Kentucky played with Georgia. And there was a couple other things that he said, but he was like,
Kentucky beat Ole Miss at home.
Yeah, that was the other one. And he said, like, the kids start to buy in, and they start to understand that, you know, even though your record's not what you want it to be, you're still right there. And he went on and kind of explained. I kind of didn't really understand, you know.
It just showed they belonged on the field against good teams. Like,
yeah.
It's not like every time they play
early.
A team with a pulse, they're going to get run out of the stadium.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm sure that's part of it. But, dude, there has to be something else to how this team just completely flipped the switch after that A&M game. And, I mean, you know, you can say that, and, you know, I'm sure the defense changed, and obviously it did with Armstrong, you know, probably not getting most of the responsibility. But something within those players had to have changed.
Well, some of it was injuries, man, and some of it was guys getting benched. I mean, DJ Douglas was a starter at one point.
That's dog. That's bad.
And he can't play.
Get him. Sick him. Yeah. Can you give me an MVP for the Gasparilla Bowl?
MVP for the Gasparilla Bowl. It's kind of a stinky game to think of an MVP, right? It's got to be somebody on defense, right? No one really – I'm rattling my brain, man. No one really stood out. I guess Connor saying Des. Well, I guess it's Big Des, man.
It was
my boy
DJ
ran for a conversion. He hoisted Tulane's QB up into the air like it was SmackDown versus Raw. I'll give it to Big Des, man. Yeah, let's do that.
It should have been Big Des, but they gave it to DJ Lagway.
Yeah, people are saying Trey Smack. So yeah, Trey Smack, of course, making all his field goals.
Yeah.
Huge. So.
Apparently, they did give it to DJ Lagway. So, all right, this playoff's about to start in about 45 minutes. First 450-pounder to get a first down, probably. I mean, I don't know of any guys that are over 400 pounds that ever carry the ball. So, All right, Graham. This was fun. We appreciate everybody popping in on all these post games, man. This was fun doing this first year, and hopefully next year this time we're talking playoffs and we're in the bubble, and we can actually talk about contending for a title, something that hasn't been done in ages.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, we'll give y'all a show Tuesday. Graham will give a full breakdown of Florida UNF, what happened on Saturday, and I will agree with everything that he says. All right. Peace.
Peace, everybody.